Hey guys, it's Rafi, and today I'm playing a game of chess here on Lee Chess, and we just started the game with d4 knight f6, c4, d5. I'm gonna go ahead and get into a Catalan system here with the move knight f3, and then next move g3. My bishop is gonna come on the g file. My opponent is playing pretty aggressively. Looks like he has some familiarity with this opening. He's quickly striking at the center and making it difficult for me to keep the center all to myself. So that's very interesting. I think this might be a time to take on d5 here, but thinking about bishop g2 as well as a possible move here, because if he takes on c4, there's a couple of options. I can play queen a4 check and take on c4. I think I'm just going to play bishop g2, which to me seems like the most principled move here, and not wasting any time capturing in the center and letting him capture instead. So if he does that, yeah, I might do a couple of captures now. Or ignore it. Possibly just ignore it and just castle. It's also possible here. But that would be truly a gambit, I think, if I did that. Thinking about taking back on d4. You know what? Let's just castle and see what happens. If he plays a move like e5 to hold on to the pawn, I could just take on e5, of course. And if he takes on c4, then I can take on d4. The way I'm playing it might be a little risky, because it's possible that we could probably end up trading queens here and going into an endgame where he will have the extra c pawn. That is definitely a possibility. So here I'm thinking if I should grab the d pawn or the c pawn, the d4 pawn or the d5 pawn. I think taking on d4 probably makes a little bit more sense here. If I take on d5, queen takes d5. Like I said, that's truly a gambit at that point. I'm not recovering my pawn back at that point anymore. I think I should probably play it safe and go ahead and capture one of the pawns back. I'm expecting him to go ahead and capture on c4 now. George Tess from Greece. Very interesting. So here I'm thinking that after d takes c, I could play maybe knight back to f3, queen takes d1, rook takes d1. I am down the pawn, but I've gotten a lot of lead in the development here in that position. And so yeah, kind of like that idea. Here I might play a move like knight b3, hitting the bishop, and then taking on on d5 and trying to give him an isolated pawn. That's definitely something to consider here. Knight to b5 is also an idea here as well. I could play knight back to c3, and if he takes on c4, then I have queen c2. Probably that's what I'm gonna go with in this position, but I'm really not. Yeah, he really can't play e5 in that position because d5 is gonna fall. So I think this is probably the principled approach here. I don't think that taking on c4 is necessarily gonna be to his advantage. It removes the d pawn away from the center, and the c pawn I think can be collected back later on with queen c2, knight d2, etc. But I want to keep my pieces active, and knight f3 seems to be the most active square for my knight. After I get my bishop out of the pawn chain, like bishop to g5, for example, I do want to play a move like e3 maybe to try to control the d4 square some. It's definitely an idea. Bishop to f4 also comes to mind here, by the way. But I think bishop to g5 is probably a little bit better here. Pins the knight. And I have a threat here of playing. Well, thought I had a threat of playing bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, then taking on d5, but I noticed that my b2 pawn is going to be under attack in that case, so it's probably not going to be the best. So I like this move from my opponent a lot, for myself, not for him, but for me, because he's moving the bishop twice, and that gives me a chance to develop one of my pieces aggressively. So I feel like I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of that by putting my knight on c3. Also considering if knight d2 is a little bit better or not, but probably knight c3 is the best move. But after d4, I have knight b5, and things are still looking pretty good because I'm hitting the d4 pawn multiple times. I think I'll be fine with that. Gonna try to keep playing active chess, getting my pieces out, putting them on optimal squares, and stick with opening principles. Well, opponent's position, I mean, he got around to castling finally, but his bishop on c8 is kind of blocked in. So, see, now he's opened up the d file, and I definitely don't want to trade queens with him here. The two ideas that come to my mind is queen to a5. I'm sorry, queen to a4, hitting the c4 pawn right away, or queen to c2. I think I like the idea of being aggressive and going to a4 straight up because it allows me to pick up that pawn immediately if I want to. And so I'm always, I have an option of playing rook d1 next move anyway. So I think I'm going to go to here because it has the additional benefit of taking away this a5 square for his queen also. So if rook d1, now he doesn't have queen a5 anymore. Whereas I am already threatening queen takes c4 here and planning rook to d1. Do have to watch out for tactics with knight e4 or knight d5. So I always have to keep those kind of tactics in mind. But I think right now my bishop on g5 is protected by my knight. So yeah, as soon as I said it, he played it. I think if I take on d5, I'm simply helping him out. So I pretty much have to take on e7 here, I think. Unless I want to drop my bishop back, which I don't, because he's playing knight b6 in that case. So I'll go with that. If I take his queen, he takes my queen. He's up a pawn. Could take on c4, but he'll play knight takes e2 check. Then he'll grab my bishop. I could take the knight on c3, then he takes my bishop, and then I pick up on c4. But I don't like the idea of my pawn structure getting messed up in that case. But I think I'm gonna have to take the knight because I just realized if I take queen, he takes. After I move my bishop, b2 will be hanging. So can't go for that line. And this c3 pawn is, yeah, it's isolated, but it's not the worst because it's taking away some critical squares from his knight, giving support to my knight on d4. And I feel like now I can play down the b file, also rook b1, hitting the b7 pawn maybe. So all those things considered, I think it's not the healthiest pawn in the world, but it's not the worst in the world either. I would say, and it's difficult for him to attack this pawn because he doesn't have that dark square bishop anymore. The only real piece that I can attack this, effectively is this queen, and tying up his queen to attack c3. I just don't think that that's going to be something that he will want to do, or will be worth the time for him. So after queen takes c7, which is what I'm. Oh, he played knight takes. Okay. Um, After I take back on c4, we'll be materially even, but I think I will have a more favorable position because I will be be better developed. I think I better go ahead and grab the c4 pawn now because queen c7 is coming to protect it, and I certainly want to grab this pawn quickly without too much delay. A move like knight d5 or queen d5 is probably coming. Knight g6, very interesting. I don't know what that knight on g6 will be able to do because it doesn't really have a lot of good prospects, to be completely honest. And I can drive it back with h4, h5 if needed. But first, I'm going to go ahead and activate these rooks, starting with rook from a to d8, or f to d1. Okay. Let's go ahead and activate our other rook to b file. Although I am expecting some sort of move like e5 to come soon here. So I'm not entirely sure how I want to approach this. I can play h4 also. It's kind of a weakening move though. But it does come with a concrete threat of h5, trapping the knight while pushing it back to h8. Rook d2. Probably rook d2 is the best way to move forward here, I would imagine. Because I'm threatening to double up immediately now with rook d1. And if he plays rook d8, then I have rook d1. He takes, I take, and I'm still maintaining control of the d file. Probably the most active way to play this position. Now that he's able to get his bishop to c6, though, that does look pretty good for him. But for the time being, let's go ahead and not think about that too much. Although I'm considering knight to d4. But then comes e5. Nah, I'm just going to go ahead and focus on getting doubled up here and just continue playing actively. My main goal of chess is activity. So if bishop c6, I can play queen to b4 also, by the way. That fixes my pawn structure and leaves me with control of the d file still. He could choose to play queen f6 here if he doesn't want to trade queens. And my plan is to try to play a move like a4, a5, a6. After a4, he will probably play a5, honestly, and and make my a pawn a target with the bishop. So I'm not sure if I really want to do that too much. But then the a5 pawn does become kind of a target because the rook is kind of tied to babysitting it to some extent. b6 becomes kind of a weakness as well. So he goes ahead and trades, and that definitely helps me fix my pawn structure now. I'm thinking now about how I can continue to improve this position. I think one way to start would be to with rook d6, improving the rook a little bit better, more. And if bishop a4, now I have rook d2 ideas. It's been very difficult for me to really prove an edge in this game. I know I've got the doubled, control of the d file, but I don't know how. He doesn't have any weaknesses really, so it's just really not that easy to break through in this position. And that is what I'm struggling with here. And a move like a5 really sticks out to me as a good move for him. a5 looks really good. That makes my b pawn a target. I might trade off the bishops, honestly. I might play knight d4 at some point here. But knight d4 actually runs into another issue now, because he can then start taking over the d file with the rook d8, so I couldn't do that. I'm really hoping he plays a move like knight e7, honestly, because then I can get in knight e5, trade off the bishops, and try to go after the b7 pawn, and somehow prove some sort of an edge with my control over the d file here. A move like e5 from an opponent also comes to mind as a possible idea, trying to chase away my knight from the f3 square. But I think the e pawn might become a weakness in some cases. I'm likely going to be playing a move like h4 pretty soon also, because then I have knight to g5 idea with trading off the bishops. I might just play knight g5 anyway, but I think h4 will help me because that takes care of my back rank issues. Improving moves in this position would be like rook to d2, h4, knight g5. I think definitely are moves to consider here. His bishop on c6 is the main piece that's holding that queenside together, I feel like. So I think trading the two bishops off is definitely going to be an advantage for me in this game. Yeah, he went ahead and pursued with a5. I was expecting this. So here I can play a3. It's probably what I'll do. Play a3. But then he comes after my e2 pawn, which is going to be a problem with the open a file. Really getting low on time, so I don't want to spend too much time thinking about this position. He's definitely getting some strong counterplay now. There's no doubt about that. He's playing very good, honestly. Just want to see stats. He's playing extremely good for a 1700. Yep, going after that as a weakness. Thinking of the most active way to defend my pawn here, I think that rook to d4 is probably going to be the way to go. But then comes e5. Rook c4. Bishop b5. Rook c7. Just thinking about other active ways to defend the piece. It's probably going to be something like this. I just have to deal with the consequences of e5. There's really no other way to defend this very well. If rook b1, there's a lot of problems after bishop e4. I'm forced to get off the first rank, and then comes rook a1 check. Bishop f1 doesn't look good after that either. Okay, so he wants to come down on the back rank, which I understand. Now is a good time to play h4. Oh crap, did I just miss a mate? Check. He takes, check, king here, check, king here, and that's not mate. Oh, there's got to be some tactics that I have here now. There's got to be something with this check. Thought I had an advantage, but I don't know if I do anymore, to be completely honest. Trying my best at this point to try to maintain some sort of an edge in this endgame that looks very drawish, and I'm down on time as well, so I'm not sure how this might span out. I'm gonna offer him a draw because I'm really, really low on time. He took it. um, I don't think I have any advantage here, that's for sure. So with the clock winding down like that, I just didn't want to blunder away the game, honestly. And I just feel like, it's just equal chances of losing and down the time. I just don't want to take those kind of chances. If I had more time on my clock, I would definitely play this out and try to go for some sort of win by trying to swindle him. But with a minute on the clock, it's just tricky. It's just really tricky. He's got 7 minutes. So from his point of view, he should not have taken this draw. He should have kept fighting for a win here because he doesn't have anything to lose. He's not worse positionally. Doesn't have any more weaknesses than I do, and he's just got extra 7 minutes to try to squeeze out a win here. He didn't. There's absolutely no chance of him losing, basically. So I would never take a draw in this kind of position personally against a high rated opponent. Let's go over the game and see what we could have done better, because I think he gave us one heck of a game, honestly. I mean, look at the 2 mistakes, 0 blunders, 4 inaccuracies. He got 5 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, 0 blunders. Average centi pawn lost 24. So this guy is playing extremely accurate. So I don't know why his rating is 1700 if he's playing like this all the time. Should be a lot higher. Certainly he plays a lot. That's for sure. Okay, so let's go over this game. Knight f6, c4, d5, knight f3, inaccuracy. Well, according to the results, white wins most of the time, so I think knight f3 is fine. e6, g3, c5, aggressive. I played bishop g2, he took. Didn't really care to take back right away, so I went ahead and just castled. Bishop c5. Now I took one pawn back in the center. Knight takes d4. Knight to c6. Knight f3 inaccuracy. Bishop knight b3 was better. Interesting. Well, I played here. And because, again, it's more principled, knight's more active on f3 than it would be on b3. For that simple reason, it does hit the bishop with the tempo, so that's probably the reason why the engine prefers knight b3. Probably a line it wants to look at is something like queen c2 maybe, or something like that, knight c3. Okay. and this, and c4 is really difficult to hold. Interesting lines. Okay. He castles, and I played bishop to g5, developing my bishop. Actively, and preparing to bring out the other knight to c3. Bishop to e7. He chooses to go ahead and unpin himself. And this is where I played knight c3, which is a mistake. Should have taken back on d. Okay, let's play knight c3 and see what the mistake is. Okay, so I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's what it would have been. Here I had this planned. But oh, he plays e5 first before he playing a6. Now my knight's really in trouble. I see. Yeah, makes sense. Totally makes sense why to computers suggesting this. I see. Okay, makes sense. So definitely should have paid attention to this idea from him of pushing the d4 pawn and then holding the d4 pawn with e5. But instead he gave me a break here actually by taking here, which allowed me to play, excuse me, queen a4, developing my queen and planning to bring the rook onto the d file. Knight d5 takes, and he could have taken with queen e7 here, by the way, but he chose to go with knight takes c3. What a line! Queen takes c6, crazy. I definitely didn't consider queen takes c6. That's a fun move to play. Yeah, because his queen is also hanging, so grab another piece. It's just going to be a bunch of trades, bunch of captures happening, and eventually we're going to end up being equal in terms of material. But I chose to go ahead and to capture this way and didn't go for those crazy lines with queen takes c6. But basically how he would play out is something like this, where I think it's a pretty equal game. Black is slightly worse, probably white's slightly better here because he's more developed and bishop is stuck. But some version of this basically happened in the game, actually. Something similar to this. Really, the only difference is that my pawn here, my pawn structure is bad. In another line, my pawn structure would not have been bad. If you go back to the other line, it's the same position except my pawn is on b2 instead of c3 with this line. Same thing. Well, I guess not same thing because his queen is on e7 and knight's on d5. Never mind. Not exactly the same. Here I was contemplating the move h4, trying to kick his knight out as soon as possible. But I was very tempted with the idea of doubling up on the d file right away and giving him some pressure there. But yeah, definitely h4 makes a lot of sense here. To try to gain some space, take away the g5 square permanently. Threaten to push his knight back with h5. I think all things considered, h4 should have been played. I agree. Because this allows basically him to play what he did in the game, which is this. And here's when I was thinking about not letting him play bishop c6 by playing some knight move, but just couldn't make it happen. Here again, h4. It's possible. Knight e1 even, because so he doesn't get the bishop on the c6 diagonal. Because after bishop gets to c6, black's position just gets really fine here. Rook a to d1, bishop c6. And then here I offered him this queen trade with queen b4, just trying to get my pawn structure fixed and take control of those dark squares. So I played this. And he took, I took back. He could have played a5 right away here, but he played a6. Now I decided to, I should have probably just traded off the bishops here actually with my d4. Because that bishop on c6 was pretty powerful. I decided to continue to improve my pieces a little bit, so rook on d6 is a little bit better placed than the rook on on d2. Couldn't really think of a plan to attack something here because I was kind of just trying to wait and see what he would do, but quickly I realized that he does have a plan of attack here, which was a5. And I'd had no good defenses against it. And I do think that my position does get a little bit worse after the next few moves here. But let's see what the computer has to say. a5. I played a3 here. Takes. Rook 6 to d4. Computer likes that move. Other moves would have been too passive, I think. Here, I thought he was going to play e5. I was waiting for this move. I don't know what exactly how things would have turned out. I did see all this, saw this, and I saw this. But I didn't know what happens if he now takes one of these pawns. So if he takes this one, I grab this one. If he grabs this, grab that, grabs this, and he's up a pawn, but I've got a lot of activity, and we have a very symmetrical pawn structure, so I think he won't be able to prove his advantage with the extra pawn, I believe, is why the computer is fine with this position. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about playing down a pawn like that. Because at that point, I mean, the only one that can win is black. It's certainly not going to be white, so I'm not sure. But he actually didn't play e5. He played this move. And I thought I missed some sort of a checkmate idea, like with rook d8. But turns out that after rook d8 takes and knight f8, I think black is fine because I don't have any good way to attack him anymore. Don't have any pieces. So I chose to go with h4 instead, giving my own king a loft from the back rank threats and planning to bring my knight to g5. So f6 would have stopped my knight from going there. Played this, h5 move. Computer is suggesting this idea here, which is quite an interesting setup now. But I definitely think that I have this little bit of advantage here because pieces are so tied down. Play this first. Plays e5 here. So computer sees a unique move here. Bishop takes c6, sacrificing the rook. Because why? So he takes this, then what? Grab that, he grabs this, grab that. Okay. So I'm up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns. I'm up a pawn. Okay. Up a pawn, and I've got a more active position. I didn't see this line, but I only had a minute, so I don't have a lot. I didn't have a lot of time to calculate all this either. So here at this position, I mean, when he played this, I had no, well, I had 30 minutes left. Okay, still very little time compared to his 7 minutes. So I went ahead and first played check. Then I took the bishop. And then I went ahead and grabbed the rook also in the corner. And attacked this c-pawn. Apparently it's a dead draw at this point. I wanted to keep some tension in the position, so that's why I played rook c4, not going ahead and giving up the b-pawn just yet. But here I started noticing that the position was only staying as a draw, and his pieces started coming to life again. So that's why I didn't want to take any more risks. So yeah, e3 here keeps the knight out of these juicy squares like d4 and f4 maybe at some point, mainly d4. So I don't understand the idea of the f4 move though. Oh, okay, there's a tactic with knight takes f6 check at the end, picking the knight on f4 back up. Interesting way to attack the center. But anyway, the move I played again doesn't. The evaluation is all draw. Giving me a slight advantage now, but just barely any advantage. And here I offered him a draw, and he took the draw here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this game. I know I did for sure. My opponent played extremely well, I think. Definitely well-deserved draw here. And hope to catch you guys in the next game. In the comments below, let me know if you guys see any tactics that I might have missed. Thank you guys.